Is a living trust right for you? In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about the basics of a living trust and also talk to you about the trends for 2021. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit subscribe and click on the bell so you can get notified with new money, legacy, and estate planning videos. As an estate planning attorney and asset protection attorney, I've helped hundreds of families protect what matters most, and I'm so excited to share with you in this video all of the advantages of a living trust, what you need to know, and the trends for 2021. Let's start with the basics of what a living trust is, and then we will dive into all of the trends for 2021. So the advantages of setting up a revocable living trust is that when you pass away, instead of having all of your assets frozen, because when you pass away with a will or you pass away with assets in your name and no estate plan, then your assets are frozen. And in most cases, your loved ones are going to have to go through a court process called probate. They're going to have to pay lawyers. They're going to have to go through a court process they don't understand. It's going to take time. It's going to take money. It's going to be a big hassle for your loved ones. Now, there are certain assets that don't go through probate when you pass away. So if you have an adult named as a beneficiary for certain types of accounts, that will automatically transfer. And then if you have the deed to your property, your real estate, set up the correct way, it may not go through until you and the second person you've named passes away. If you're a business owner and you pass away and your operating agreement and your estate plan doesn't say what happens to your business and your business assets, well, that's going to go through probate as well. And if you're a real estate investor, maybe you have a rental property. If you just have it in an LLC and you haven't addressed it in the estate plan or you haven't addressed it in the operating agreement, then that's going to go through probate. And big key point, if you are a real estate investor and you have assets in another state, well, then your loved ones are going to have to go through probate in multiple states, which means multiple sets of fees, multiple sets of attorneys, delays, and complication. So a revocable living trust is a substitute for a will, and you set it up when you're living, and because of that, it does not go through probate as long as you transfer assets out of your name into the name of the trust. It also has other advantages down the road. Instead of your children receiving their assets outright at 18, you can set it up so that they receive it much later, or they receive it in a special type of trust that protects it from their future creditors and future divorces. If you have special needs children, you can set up a special needs trust that they receive it in to also give them protection and make sure that they will still qualify for government benefits. And if you have maybe a loved one that needs more financial support, well, you can set more structures in place. The other advantages of setting up a living trust is the disability protection. So if you've been following in the news everything that's been happening with Britney Spears, well, if you set up a living trust and you also set up the correct healthcare documents, so the healthcare set that I talk about, which we'll talk about here in a moment, well, then you can also protect yourself from the situation Britney Spears is going through. And if you have been following that situation and you have some comments on it or feelings, let me know in the comments. I would love to know where you are with that. So to sum it up, a living trust really sets things up in a way that everything transfers smoothly. Your loved ones will not have to go through probate. They won't have to hire lawyers. They won't have to go through a process they don't understand. Everything will be transferred smoothly. They won't have to wait months or even years, and there won't be the opportunity for conflict like there is through a court process. So let's now shift gears and talk about some of the trends in 2021 when it comes to revocable living trusts and with estate planning. Now, the first trend I'm seeing relates to taxes. And with our change in power, many people are concerned with estate taxes. Many people are setting up their estate plans now because they really want to get grandfathered in our current structures. So let me explain what this all means and how it can be useful for you. Right now, currently how it stands as of the recording of this video of July of 2021, there has not been any changes to our tax code. So Biden has come in power. He has said some proposals, and it's looking like there's going to be a change, and I'll talk about what those are. But currently, as it stands, the majority of people don't have an estate tax issue, right? The estate tax amount is 40%. However, you're allowed to pass on a certain amount called an exemption without having to pay that. And currently that amount is $11.7 million. So many people just tell me, I'm not worried about that. I would love to have that problem. Well, things are about to change, and some of the numbers that have been floating around is that number going back down to 1 million or 2 million. And if it does, it's going to be a major problem for people who are above that amount because their estates would be taxed at 40%, which is extremely high. So there are things you can put in place with a trust to minimize paying that at your passing. One of the strategies is setting up a Q-tip trust to minimize what you have to pay. The second main trend I'm seeing in 2021 is this real interest in disability protection. A lot of that has come forward with the unfortunate situation with Britney Spears. If you've been following it, again, let me know what you think. But having disability protection in place really means putting in place financial powers of attorney, healthcare powers of attorney, so that you aren't in a situation down the road where a stranger is making a decision. And that's exactly what Britney Spears is going through right now. It's awful. It's a horrible situation for her. And for many people, that's very scary because for the vast majority of us, at some point in our life, we'll become incapacitated to the point we can't make our medical and financial decisions. And we really want to make sure people we trust are in that role. The other trend I'm seeing in 2021 is unique assets, cryptocurrency, and really digital legacy. So when it comes to unique assets, whether it's cryptocurrency or your digital legacy, you can absolutely include that in your estate plan. The other trend I'm seeing is blended families. And when it comes to estate planning, there are things you can put in place to really reduce the amount of friction when you pass away. So if you are in a blended family and you have stepchildren, you really want to set up a plan so that it's not going to create that conflict when something happens down the road. And that's something you can plan in advance. And the final trend I'm really seeing is concerns around privacy. And kind of the traditional way that people set up estate plans in the past was to use their name. And more I'm seeing that families want to use some other name, some other word, because they don't want to have that information out there that they have a trust. If you like this video, I want to invite you to learn more. And many people tell me they just feel overwhelmed by estate planning. They don't know how to get started. So I created this 30-minute educational webinar where I really walk you through the basics. It involves a lot of examples. I use cartoons. It's really engaging, and I know you'll get a lot of value out of it. So head over to my website, lawmother.com/webinar.